is a war. It's happening now. It will decide the fate of humanity. The time to choose sides has come. We are the resistance. We are the InfoWar.
Welcome to the InfoWars Nightly News. I'm David Knight. It's Thursday, September 25th, 2014, and here are our top stories.
Tonight, the United Nations' newest scheme to infringe on gun rights. Then, how the car kill switch could affect you. And why is the Attorney General stepping down?
I don't know.
That's next on the InfoWars Nightly News.
No, it's about Fast and Furious. It's about the IRS targeting the Tea Party. He is now stepping down so they can reshuffle things.
Well, Obama's attorney criminal, Eric Holder, has announced that he's going to step down. It remains to be seen what he's going to do. Of course, he's not being indicted, unfortunately. He's going to retire with full benefits, and we'll see what he does afterwards. Is he going to be a university doctorate? Is he going to be a lawyer? Or maybe a CEO chief? Now, his tenure at the Justice Department was marked by a lot of efforts to take down the Second Amendment, things like Fast and Furious and Operation Choke Point, which we're going to talk about later in the broadcast. There's been some new developments with that. Maybe he'll be heading to the Supreme Court, since now we apparently have courts that uphold criminal government activity, like he's been a part of and like he's been covering up. We see a case that might be headed to the Supreme Court that we've reported on several times here at InfoWars about Jonathan Corbett, who is suing the TSA, saying that they're violating his constitutional rights, which of course they are. He lost, however, at an appeals court 2-1 in a decision that sounded like something out of a Franz Kafka novel, specifically the trial. Now, what they said in this decision, two of the judges said that he had waited too late to file his appeal. Listen to their logic. The TSA's objection on his case, which was upheld by the appeals court, said that if they were continuing objectionable behavior for a certain period of time, 30 to 60, 90 days, it could never be challenged by anyone. And number two, that time period wouldn't be from the time that he began his case, but from when he proceeded in the court that they preferred. Basically what they did was they moved him to a different court location, but kept the clock running. And then two of the three appeals court judges said, sorry, you missed your deadline. Now, he points out again in his blog, he says that this 30 days or 60 days, whatever, and forever immunized theory says that essentially the government, without violating your constitutional right to redress grievances, can create a law that says once we do it for a certain amount of time, it's permanent, and we can keep doing it forever, and you can never take us to court. They also went even further, and this was part of what the dissenting judge had a problem with, and said, well, even if you'd done it on time, which of course he did do it on time, even if you'd done it on time, it was constitutional anyway. Understand what they're saying here. This is essentially what we've heard supposedly the most conservative, most strictly by the letter constitutional judge Justice Scalia say recently. Well, it appears like the TSA is violating your Fourth Amendment, but they couldn't do it if it violated your Fourth Amendment. Do you understand the logic behind that? That's essentially what Richard Nixon said when he says, if the president does it, it isn't against the law. That's what Justice Scalia has said. That's what these two justices said. If the government does it, it's not against the law. That is flat out tyranny. That is where we are at this moment. Hopefully it will be heard by the Supreme Court. Hopefully they'll be a bit more honest. Now, in news in Syria, we have a report from Paul Joseph Watson that an airstrike there has killed 6 children, 21 adults, 27 people totally. But I would say it's essentially mission accomplished because there were no friendly fire casualties. That's right, none of our ISIS allies in the war against Syria were harmed. And here's a quote from one of the locals in the article. He said, the coalition is not against terrorism, it's against civilians, as you can see here. The revolution has been going on for 4 years now, and not a single missile was shot at us by Bashar al-Assad and his gang. The coalition fired 2 missiles, supposedly targeting ISIS, but there were no ISIS members here, not even ISIS children. Well, the war against the Second Amendment continues, and as I mentioned when we were talking about Eric Holder, it has had many forms under the Obama administration. They have looked for every novel way that they can to infringe the Second Amendment. Essentially the same sort of thing that you saw done in the District of Columbia when their gun laws were struck down by the Supreme Court, and they said, no, you're violating people's rights to own firearms. They said, fine, you can own firearms, you just need to leave them locked in a gun case at home. No, that's not allowing people to keep and bear firearms. And neither is it when you deny them the use of ammunition. That's the tactic that the Obama administration has been taking from day one. At the very beginning, they tried to withhold recycled brass from the military from the commercial market, making it much more expensive. Then they mass purchased billions of rounds of ammunition, drying up sources of ammunition. Now the tactic is to make lead illegal. And the UN is being brought into this as well. We've seen this happening in California. The United Nations is proposing a global lead ammunition ban. And as Kit Daniels points out, a UN agency that is proposing this is essentially doing gun control by the back door, making ammunition prohibitively expensive. Now, the UN conference said that voluntary approaches to restricting the use of lead ammunition don't work on a national level, and they need to address a range of societal issues, things like philosophical issues regarding gun rights and increased government oversight of shooting. They're making no bones about it. They intend to take away your fundamental, constitutionally recognized right. That right doesn't come from the Constitution. It comes from the fact that you are a human being created in the image of God, and it is something that the Constitution recognizes as the fact that you're not a slave. That's essentially what separates you from slavery and tyranny. They want to remove that. They know they can't take the guns in a stand-up fight, so they're going to starve the public, taking away the ammunition. How has this worked out in California? A research firm there believes that it's going to result in a 300% increase in the price of ammunition in California. Based on a survey in California, they say these increases in ammunition price will drive 36% of California hunters to stop hunting or reduce their participation. An additional 10% were unsure if they would continue to hunt, and another 23% said they would likely hunt less than in recent years. So altogether, that's about 69%. In other words, 7 out of 10 people are going to be dramatically affected by this. It's going to stop them from hunting, stop them from shooting. Mission accomplished, apparently. And as I mentioned at the beginning, Eric Holder's Operation Choke Point that began this last summer back in May, where they try to stop the purchases of firearms and ammunition by cutting off merchants' ability to have access to bank transactions. Now, this is being extended to another level. The Daily Signal reports today that for gun shop owners, it's no longer hip to be square. What they're pointing out is the device from a company called Square. It allows you to take a very small square plastic device, insert it into your smartphone, and that Square has a mag stripe reader in it. It allows small business owners, especially someone who is at a remote location like a gun show, it allows them to do transactions on the fly, essentially run credit card transactions with that little device plugged into their smartphone. They want to shut down gun shows, and this is one of the ways that they're going to do it. In August, they modified the terms yet again. Now, the Daily Signal points out that the timing also coincides with banking relationship cancellations of pro-Second Amendment candidates and campaigns throughout the U.S., including last year's Colorado recall elections over gun control. And as I pointed out, they've tried 3 times to get comments from Square and have been refused so far. Well, after the break, we're going to have some more news about what banks are doing, this time to car owners who have poor credit. And we're going to have some news about victories in the info war about vaccines. Stay with us.
In the past decade, we have witnessed unparalleled scientific discoveries in the area of health. But no one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. DNA Force is one of the most expensive formulas to produce. Some of the ingredients in DNA Force are $12,000 a kilogram. we are using the coveted, patented, only American source of PQQ, CoQ10, and more. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? Well, we're bringing you a total win-win. The ultimate value, cutting-edge, trailblazing game changer that also supports the InfoWar. We have produced a limited run of DNA Force, and it will take up to 12 weeks to produce more once we sell out. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. DNA Force from InfoWars Life.
Celebrate the spirit of freedom and liberty upon which our nation was founded at InfoWarsShop.com. Molon Lave is ancient Greek for come and take it. This popular design combines both classic Greek Spartan imagery with modern M16 assault rifles. Now available in women's tees and proudly made in the USA. Celebrate the spirit of 1776 with the George Washington brass belt buckle or this incredibly sharp-looking 1776 hat. Badass. And be sure to check out the new arrivals at InfoWars Life, where you can prepare your body to perform at peak levels with Survival Shield Nascent Iodine, Super Male Vitality, and Fluoride Shield. And wake up, America. Immune Support Blend is the healthy choice for the gourmet coffee lover. So get incredibly high-quality, freedom-based products and help fund the revolution at InfoWarsShop.com.
Welcome back. Now, you know you're winning the information war when the other side has no response but to resort to censorship. And that's essentially what has happened to actor Rob Schneider. He's had his television ad for State Farm pulled because of his anti-vaccine views, according to the Wrap. Now, it's not necessarily anti-vaccine. What he wants is informed parental consent. They say Schneider has long held a stance against vaccinations. In 2012, he came out against California Bill AB 2109 that requires parents to seek professional medical advice regarding the risks and rewards of vaccinating their children. Well, that begs the question. Are those risks going to be honestly presented to people? Or are they going to be lied to, as the CDC lied to us about the vaccine autism connection 10 years ago and covered it up for 10 years? That's an important question. Now, Rob Schneider very classily tweeted this out. He said, "Thanks to all my supporters who believe, as I do, that parents should decide what's in the best interest of their children and not government mandates." That's right. They should be fully, honestly informed of the risks. They should not be railroaded into mandatory vaccines or intimidated into it by government or by big pharmaceuticals or by government officials who've gotten large campaign donations. It's too bad that the CDC doesn't have his integrity. It was just last week that a Hollywood Reporter reported Hollywood's vaccine wars, LA's quote-unquote entitled Westsiders, are behind the city's epidemic. They say vaccination rates are plummeting at top Hollywood schools, from Malibu to Beverly Hills, from John Thomas Dye to Turning Point, where affluent, educated parents are opting out in shocking numbers, leaving some schools' immunization rates on par with the South Sudan. I guess you're going to have to call in Bill Gates. Maybe he's got some vaccine mosquitoes that he can circulate around to force these people to take a vaccine. Maybe they should ask why the most affluent, best educated people are concerned about vaccinating their children. The elephant in the room is what's added to the vaccines, the mercury, the formaldehyde, the other things that are listed in the ingredients if you care to look, to care about your children's health. Now, they go on to say that the immunization records submitted to the state by educational facilities suggest that wealthy West Side kids, particularly those attending exclusive entertainment industry-favored childcare centers, preschools, and kindergartens, are far more likely to get sick. Oh, so now what they're saying is they've got an epidemic because people are not getting vaccines. Well, of course, the people who are getting vaccines are protected, right? Because those things are effective. Or are they? Let me tell you, 100% of the kids that I went to school with, kids in my neighborhood, got measles when I was a kid. We survived a few days of fever. Nobody when I was a kid was getting autism. Nobody was being afflicted with autism for life because of something they got injected with. Now, they go on to say that more parents in this demographic are choosing not